Hey, this is Shane from Performance EV. Today we're going to do a bit of a project update on our Nissan Leaf powered Porsche 911. Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us. So for those of you new to this channel, this is my project to put a Nissan Leaf motor into a Porsche 911. And over the previous few videos, I've been working mainly on the battery pack. Because that's one of the last major pieces that needed to come together in order for this, this project to move forward. We've got the motor in place, we've got an inverter that works, and yeah, the battery pack was the last big thing. Well, the pack and then also the battery box that it will fit in. So, since working on the pack over the last few weeks, it's not really been anything. No major milestones that I've managed to hit on the project. So I figured maybe doing a bit of an update video, showing you one or two things that were happening and talking about where we're going to next was probably the best way to get everyone back up to speed, and also sets us up nicely for what will hopefully be quite a few productive weeks now of getting a bunch of smaller things out of the way and really getting this car close to being able to go on the road. So as I said, the last few weeks we've been focusing on the battery pack, so that I'm happy with. It's showing good voltages and is pretty much ready to be connected into the car. So if I was to take the inverter and motor and everything out, I could wire something up pretty quickly to run the motor from that battery pack. But I'm pretty confident in the way all the individual components work, so I'll actually be doing all that connection for the first time in the car in probably a few weeks' time. So with that ready, I've kind of pushed it to one side of the garage and it's sitting there raring to go. I still need to tidy up the wiring, but that's not too much of an issue. So then the next focus really needs to be on the battery box. So my initial plan was my very first plan was to build a totally custom battery box. Then all these lockdowns and stuff happened, and it's definitely taken longer to get certain parts and tools and stuff than it sometimes does. So I've tried to kind of reuse and recycle where possible. So I figured the Leaf battery pack has some good solid metal in it, and the one that I managed to get my hands on was pretty brand new. There's no rust on it, no issues. So I figured, why not try to reuse that? So I've kind of got a bunch of the components together. And while I hit a bit of a snag with the welding of the galvanized steel, I've managed to actually find a way around that. It's not pretty, but it's solid, and that was basically by a stick welder and just use it to basically it cuts through any impurities that are coming from the zinc coating on the galvanized steel. It cuts through that a little bit better, and I'm actually getting good penetration and solid welds. They're ugly, they are very ugly, because it's my first time really using stick, but they're holding. So next step, after kind of building out the main frame that I'm going to use to connect between the base of the Nissan Leaf battery pack and the Porsche kind of chassis and frame rails, is I need to figure out what angles I need to cut into that so that it can be actually bolted in the car, because the width of the Leaf battery pack as a whole is wider than the space between the frame rails, and it doesn't necessarily cause a problem, but it does mean we have to be a little more inventive in how we shape this particular piece of gear. So what I did was I basically took this out under the car and just kind of started holding it up to see how far out it was. I'd taken the measurements. I knew there was stuff I was going to need to cut off, but I like to see these things actually as they are. there's probably about 4 or 5 centimeters that needs to come out, well, maybe 3 or 4 centimeters that needs to come out on each side, and then we should have something that will slot into the Porsche engine bay. I just need to figure out how far down I need to cut so that there's still plenty of metal left to actually create mounting plates that will attach between the Porsche and the battery pack. So that's something that we'll go into in a lot more detail in a, we'll dedicate a video or two to that in the coming weeks. So yeah, the next plan was basically to try and try and hold up a bit more of the battery pack. But then the weather kind of took a bit of a turn, and we went from having really nice hot sunny days to thunderstorms all the time and torrential rain, and I managed to not get the car covered up in time for one of the downpours, which led to a little bit of panic with the inverter. So we had a bit of a mishap. A thunderstorm came over while I didn't have the car covered. I'm normally very careful about covering it, and as you can see, there's no real weather protection in here at the moment, hence the reason why I'm very crazy about keeping it covered. And I'm just a little bit worried that some water might have gotten into the inverter. So I'm going to disconnect everything and then get the inverter inside and open it up and see if we've got an issue or not. All right, let's open this up and see what we're facing. So I've had this inverter for like 18 months. I've been inside it, all over it, and I've only just noticed that it's got these two random little kangaroos on the casting for the casing. So there's one here on top and there's one down the bottom as well. Bizarre. All right, we're ready to get the lid off. So this is really good news. I'm not seeing any indications of any sort of water inside the casing. Pure dumb luck, really. I was stupid and I shouldn't have been. So I'll be much more careful in the future. And yeah, chance to just double check all the wiring and connections look all right, and they do. So I'm gonna get this button back up. So the inverter looked like it was okay. There didn't seem to be any water that had made it in, or if it had made it in, it had evaporated. So what I decided to do was the only logical thing, which is to try and run the motor with the inverter. So get the inverter back in the car. I took a few of the batteries out because the plan that I had really was just to drive the car into the garage and basically park it up in there for the next few weeks while we work on things like the battery pack and some other things that I'll talk about later. So yeah, so I just created a 100-volt battery pack and got ready to drive the car. All right, so now I'm pretty happy that the inverter is kind of working, not totally dead because of the rain. I want to get it back in the car so I can get the car back into the garage to start working on a few things. But I don't want to have to try and repackage everything the way it was, so I'm going to try and find the best 6 to 10 batteries, go with a smaller voltage, and just to get it into the garage, and then we'll take everything out properly and start trying to fit the proper battery box. So let's just see which of these are looking best. So it's not going to be a finely balanced pack, but we have kind of 8 cells that are between 12.76 and 12.82 volts. So we're going to go with those ones, get the rest of them out, get the inverter back in, and try and just plumb everything in together. There we go, 102.9 volts. Should be enough to get us into the garage. Okay, so double checked all the wiring, it's looking good. So I just need to got it all kind of moved out, spread out a little bit more than it was previously. This is obviously all going to be replaced with the main battery box into something much neater, but now we just want to get the inverter back in place and the high voltage wiring and shielding kind of grounds connected, and then we'll be ready to go. So that's where we are then now. We've got the car in the garage. It's going to stay here for a few weeks because I'll have removed anything that can actually drive it. So I'll be able to push it around, but I don't fancy doing that much. So we'll be able to build out the things that I've been talking about. So step one of this process now is to just get the things out of the way so I can start looking at the space again. So that means removing the rest of the batteries, removing the inverter, removing the bumper, removing the deck lid. So then I can look at the space and we can start to actually fit out the battery box properly. So yeah, let's go and do that. All right, there we go. We've got our space back. Gonna need to remove the engine mounts either side, just because, yeah, they're surplus to requirements now, and they are just going to get in the way. So I think I should be able to undo them just by drilling out the spot welds. But we will need to. We'll also just unbolt the mounts themselves because they're leaking anyway. They're pretty shot, so we'll just unmount them and then get a drill at the spot welds, pop them out, get those off, and then we'll see if anything actually fits. Okay, so now we've got the space. I can see where I need to take a few things out. Those engine mounts were going to be unusable. There was way too much given them. They weren't providing any sort of dampening or anything from the engine when it was in the car. So they're staying out, and I'm actually going to remove the kind of brackets that they sat into because they would foul where I've got part of the battery pack frame coming up, but also the actual battery pack itself would end up hitting off them. So we're just going to probably drill out the spot welds on those so that it's nice and clear, and we've got an even kind of rectangular space that I can then put everything in, and that at that point we'll start cutting up the frames so that I can just get everything situated properly in the space. Then we'll look to create kind of mounting points for it, and ultimately then put the pack into the box and then put the box into the car. So that brings us up to where we are pretty much right now in terms of the battery side of things. The other thing that's going to cause me trouble, I think, getting the car on the road is actually getting it to pass the MOT with the drive shafts that I have in place. So the drive shafts I created, they're working fine. They're perfect for driving the car around the driveway, and to be honest, if it was legal, I'd probably trust them from a mechanical perspective to be able to go out on the road and certainly drive at low speeds. But my car isn't currently taxed or registered on the road, and in order to do that I need to get past a roadworthiness check, and I'm not confident that they would actually allow those drive shafts to pass the check. So I need to do what I've been talking about doing for a few months, which is actually get someone to make up the drive shafts. So I've been in touch with a few companies that can do it, just waiting to kind of hear back from them and then decide who I'm going to send it to. But basically, in preparation for that, I guess the very next step on this is going to be to get the wheels and hubs off the car so I can get the drive shafts out and shipped to wherever they're going to be made. And yeah, then that will also, I guess, free up a little bit of space in here for me to work around for things like the battery box and everything, and allow me to come in at different angles. So that's basically where we are. I think we're really close to being able to drive this car on the road. It won't have all the systems that I necessarily want, but it will be, I guess, roadworthy, hopefully road legal, and able to to travel the distances that the battery pack will allow it. And then I can look at enhancing and improving it after that. So I hope you'll join me for those future videos. I hope this video has been helpful, just to get you caught up and find out where things are. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who kind of watches these videos. And yeah, people who, as always, if you've liked the video, feel free to drop a like, drop a comment in the comment section. I do try and answer all of them. But till next time, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.